Hey, hey, hey. This is Dr. Elisha Robinson, your integrative healing specialist. And I'm coming to you from, of course, my living room, but I have a very, very special guest. Mr. Yirser Ra Hotep. Say hi, everybody, to all the people out there, Mr. Hotep.
Hello, everybody. Hotep.
So let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Hotep. I got to brag about you for a little bit. Is that okay?
All right.
Okay. He is a Master Instructor of Yoga, and he's also the creator of the YogaSkills method. We're going to learn a lot about that. He is the most senior instructor of Kemetic Yoga in the United States with over 42, I think I'm dating you right there, 42 years of experience practicing and teaching. Mr. Hotep was involved with the original research and documentation of Kemetic Yoga. Kemetic Yoga is ancient Egyptian or African yoga, along with Master Instructor Dr. Yirser Ra Hotep in the 1970s. He has trained and certified over 1,000, probably more than that, 5,000, oh, he corrected me, 5,000 Kemetic Yoga instructors across the globe through his school, YogaSkills School of Kemetic Yoga. And he conducts historical, cultural, spiritual tours of Egypt, Ethiopia, Ghana, South Africa, and other parts of the African diaspora. I was recently on his website, and I'm not a stranger to the motherland. I've been to Africa, I've been to Kenya multiple times, but because my children are Kenyan, but I am so impressed by his visit to the diaspora. And I think we're going to touch on that a little bit. And he's going to tell us how we can get connected to him in order to make that trip to the motherland, that jihad to the motherland with him. Okay. So Mr. Hotep, is there anything else you want to talk to us about your background? Did I do a good job?
You did a good job. You know, it's a whole bunch of things. You know, I've been teaching. I've been doing a whole bunch of different things for a long time, more like 46 years, 45 years since I you know, adopted a holistic lifestyle and started practicing and teaching yoga and health and wellness and things like that, you know. So I've done a whole lot of things, you know, in addition to my background as a yoga, as a Kemetic yoga instructor and trainer. Also, I have a master's degree in social service administration from the University of Chicago. Mm-hmm. I consider myself to be somewhat of a political scientist because I have a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Illinois at Chicago. I studied at the Center for Inner City Studies, Jacob Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies, back in the late 70s, early 80s, mm-hmm. Where I learned how to read the Madhu Nature. Madhu Nature refers to what is commonly called the hieroglyphs. Mm-hmm. And also studied comparative African religious and philosophical systems, you know, a lot of different things like that, you know. So, you know, so it's hard for me to just pinpoint one area of myself that is more important than the other, because I enjoy all aspects of myself. I enjoy being a social worker. I enjoy being involved to some degree in political science and the research aspect of that. I enjoy anthropology, sociology, all these different areas. I've also been a professor at, a part-time adjunct professor at DePaul University in Chicago. I did that for about 20 years. And I taught courses like the Science of Yoga. I taught course like stress management for health and wellness. I think that was the first course that I created. All the courses that I taught there, most of them I created. I created a course called ancient wisdom versus modern science, where we compared, the ancient scientific and spiritual ideas and philosophies with modern scientific. We compared and contrasted them with the European worldview, with the African worldview, and with the idea of science and technology and things, the way that they're conceived of and practiced today. We just did a comparative analysis. I've taught research methods. I've taught cultural diversity. I've taught the
wow.
American family and genealogy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are the Renaissance man, huh?
Well, I don't know if I would call myself that, but I try to be, I like a lot of stuff. I have a wide range of interests, and a lot of times people try to say, well, you're just a yoga teacher. You don't really know about this, that, and the other. But I do. I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of, there's certain areas that I can pinpoint. I say that I have some expertise in these particular areas.
So tell us about Kemetic Yoga. What is it, and what is the difference between Kemetic Yoga and Indian Yoga?
Well, the word Kemetic comes from the word Kemet. Kemet, which is spelled Kemet, refers to the country that we now call Egypt. Egypt is a country in the northeastern part of Africa. But so Kemetic Yoga refers to the spiritual and scientific, the spiritual science that emerged from our ancestors in ancient Egypt, and also the system of yoga that we can see was practiced by our ancestors, because it's in Africa and we are African people, right? That was practiced in those ancient times. And what's significant about it is, number one, Egypt, or properly called Kemet, and Kemet means the black land. Some people say it means the land of the blacks. Kemet is the birthplace of world civilization. So the civilization that we have now, you are a doctor. The father of modern medicine was an ancient Egyptian or Kemetic person named Hotep.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And his name means Prince of Peace.
Yes.
Also a yogi. He was also a practitioner of meditation. He was also a person who consumed a plant-based diet. And so if there was one person I try to attribute the practice of yoga to, even though yoga existed in Africa for many thousands and thousands of years.
Did it precede Indian yoga? Which was first?
I don't like to get into that discussion about which one was first.
Okay.
Let people come to their own conclusion. I believe that the original human beings on the planet came out of Africa.
Right. And you're right. You're absolutely right.
And so as such, I believe that the first person to meditate, to contemplate, to breathe for the purpose of enhancing their health and their wellness was an African, was a person on the African continent. If you think of what is yoga, the word yoga is supposedly a Sanskrit word. But when you look at, well, what is yoga? A philosophy, breathing, meditation, movement. This is a universal thing, right? It's not just something that is endemic to a place that we now call India.
Okay.
So human beings in Africa, I think from the beginning of time, from the beginning of humanity, engaged themselves in some way or form in what we now call yoga. I can show you images of cave drawings from the ancient Sahara Desert that are over 20,000 years old, showing people in yoga positions. The people in India, they claim that yoga is 5,000 years old and it comes from India. But we can see examples of yoga in ancient Kemet as well as in other parts of Africa. They go back 20, 30 or 40,000 years.
Are you talking about the poses that you do when you're doing yoga?
I'm talking about the poses. I'm talking about the symbols. I'm talking about images of a person sitting in a meditative position. I'm talking about stories and texts that refer to what we call yoga.
Is yoga a religion?
Yoga is not a religion. Yoga is a science of self-development. So if you went to India, they have mixed Hinduism, which comes much later than yoga. Yoga was even in India, yoga is much older than Hinduism, but they have mixed yoga and Hinduism together. So people actually have the misconception that the science of yoga is a religion because they're looking at it from this brief period of time in history. The yoga in India has been, combined together. Yoga and Hinduism in India has been combined together, and so they have included their prayers and their chants and some of their other deities and stuff into the practice of yoga. But yoga is not a religion. It's a science of self-development. The most fundamental aspect of yoga is breathing. It's the breath.
Yes, yeah. And we're going to talk about that. And before we began, that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about was breathing. And I talk about that a lot with my patients and the importance of breath and being self-aware. So tell me, why is breathing one of the most important fundamentals in Kemetic Yoga?
Because in life, period, the most important thing that any living entity on the planet Earth does is to breathe, right? Respiration.
Yes.
So when you look at the word respiratory,
you
see that it has a prefix RE, which means to do again, and a suffix ORY. But the root of the word is spirit, spirit, ori, system. And so every time you take a breath, you are respiritizing yourself. You can live for many, many weeks without food. You can live for a long time without water.
Yes.
But you can only live for 5 minutes without air before on average, before you become brain dead, right?
Right.
And so breathing is so fundamental. We are surrounded in a fluid field of air. And we don't pay attention to it because it's invisible. But it is the most important element in our environment. And it makes us be able to operate, to think, to be alive, to interact with our own selves and with others.
Right.
We exist in this fluid, which we call air, which we call atmosphere. And our ancient ancestors in Kemet, they used the term shu, S-H-U, to refer to this fluid field that we exist in. When I say fluid, I don't want people to think I'm talking about like water, but it's we exist in a field of air. It has waves. It responds to different forces. So we have wind, we have hurricanes and tornadoes. It's all kind of different aspects to this thing, right? But the main thing is that it has the elements that we use. It has the gases that we use to live, that causes us to have the ability to live, that causes us to have the ability to have metabolism, to metabolize and to operate the body. and we interact with our natural environment through breathing, right? Because when we breathe in, we're taking in a substance that is produced by the plants around us in nature. And when we exhale, we're releasing a substance which is absorbed by the plants to allow them to live, and then produce the air, the oxygen that we need to be able to live, right? And so we're in this symbiotic relationship with the environment, with nature, that causes us to have an affinity for nature. It should cause us to have a concept that I do not want to destroy nature. I do not want to chop down the trees. I don't want to bring up all kind of carbon, fluorocarbons from the earth and let them pollute the air so I can't breathe, right? And I'm going to destroy the plant life and the animal life. I want to, once you understand the importance of air, the importance of breathing, it gives you a moral imperative that you should become an ecologist, that you should preserve nature, not destroy nature, that you should be in harmony with nature, not in competition or in an exploitive relationship with nature.
Now, as you were talking, people who are going to be listening to this podcast can't see me smile, but the people who are going to be watching the webinars will be able to, because everything you're saying is ringing true to me, especially with the breath, because I'm like, wait a minute, I say exactly the things that you're saying to the patients about the importance of breath. And I tell them that you can't live. You can live without food, you can live without water, but you can't live without air. And I had a really, really interesting thought about Kemetic Yoga. Some people think yoga is just an exercise. Right. Do you classify it as an exercise, or do you classify it as a lifestyle? And if it's a lifestyle, what does a day in the life of a Kemetic yoga instructor or yoga participant or someone who practices it, what does it look like?
Well, I classify yoga as a science of self-development. And so to me, that is the best definition of it. It's a science. And a science means that you engage in activities that have certain effects that can be replicated. You can observe them through your own experience. You can observe them by looking at other people and taking in information from them. You can observe them by doing experimentation, and you can measure the effects. You can measure the increases and decreases of certain type of metabolic and biochemical functions and processes in the body. That tells you that this practice has an effect that is measurable and that has a transformational effect upon a person. Yeah. It allows this person to become more effective, more self-realized in terms of understanding and knowing who their true power and their true nature, and then allows that person to become more self-actualized, being able to put their understanding of their true self into an action plan that allows them to reach whatever goal that they're trying to reach, and allows them to sort of manipulate the material world and shape it into produce whatever it is that their mind is telling them under the guidance of spirit that they should be doing, and that they should be creating. So it allows you to become the creator within the context of your own individual self, within the context of those things that you was put here to do, to create and to bring it to being, to reach your own destiny. So this is much different than saying, I'm going to do yoga so I can get my gluteus muscles and my thigh muscles stronger and increase my core strength.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to do this to stretch my hamstrings and twist my spine so that when I hit the golf ball, I can make it go further and stuff like that. You're going to get the physical aspects. You're going to get the physical benefits from your practice of yoga, but it is way beyond just the physical. You're going to engage in movements and postures that are going to enhance your blood circulation. Yoga is much more than just flexibility. I'm talking about the movements and postures, right? It's much more than just flexibility. When you do these postures in Kemetic Yoga and using YogaSkills method, you do them slowly. You take a slow, deep inhalation. You take a slow exhalation as you lengthen your body into the position. And so in turn, you know, as a physician, that you are going to move blood circulation from the arteries into the veins, into the capillaries to feed the cells of the body. So when you practice yoga correctly and you go slow and you take your time and you coordinate with your breath, which is what we're doing as Kemetic Yoga practitioners, we see that there's an increase in our blood circulation, that more blood, which carries oxygen and nutrients, is being delivered into the cells of the body. And the cells are, the body's made up of billions or trillions of cells, whatever number it is. And the cells are made of molecules and atoms. And so we are actually affecting ourselves on a cellular level and also on a molecular and an atomic level.
Yeah.
Because we're changing our vibrational frequency, because we're affecting the atomic makeup of the body, you know. So we got to go all the way down and understand these things, you know. And so in terms of the lifestyle of a yoga practitioner, we tend to consume a plant-based diet. In India, they talk about eating dairy products and yogurt and all that kind of stuff. The Kemetic Yoga teachers and practitioners, we don't eat any animal products. We don't eat dairy products. We don't consume meat. We don't.
So are you a vegan?
Well, I call it vegetarian because to me, a vegetable is a vegetable. A vegetable is not a piece of fish. It's not a piece of cheese. You know, it's not some milk. So they use the term vegan, but vegan is, I don't know why that, you know, why they had to put that extra word in there, because vegetarian refers to vegetable and fishes and cow milk, and they've never been they've never been part of the vegetable kingdom.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So we don't consume those things because we say, especially the dairy products, because we say that they have a negative effect on the respiratory system, right?
Yeah, they cause a lot of mucus in the respiratory system.
Yeah, and
mucus build up.
And they're also acidic.
Yeah.
And so because they're acidic, the body responds to them in a way of forming mucus, and they also interfere with your body's with the calcium absorption in your body, and so they actually weaken. Milk actually weakens the bones.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that we are the only living organisms that continue to drink milk outside of infancy. And then we drink other animals' milk, which is unnatural. Like I tell people, like I breastfed both of my daughters, my first daughter for 2 years. And I breastfed my second daughter for 4 years. And for 4 years. So, but the first year they both were strictly breastfed. So every nutrient that went into me went into them. And you take, you know, for 1 year, you take this little 7-pound baby and turn it into a 20-pounder by the end of the first year, because all the nutrients, the protein, the vitamins and minerals, and even my hormones, maternal hormones, were given to her through the breast milk. And then you have a cow, which we drink a lot of cow milk. And you have a cow who is feeding a calf and turns it into a cow by that milk. And so we're ingesting that, which is unnatural. So absolutely, and if it's unnatural, it's going to produce an unnatural process or toxic waste in our body, which is acidity, which is mucus buildup in the respiratory tract, in the GI tract, sludge in the GI tract, exacerbating diabetes and causing diabetes and all types of other myriad chronic diseases.
Right, especially respiratory
Yeah.
disease and problems with the sinus, the sinuses, and the bronchial area of the lungs, the windpipe, and all of those areas become congested, so you can't breathe in. When I work with children, when you go to these Head Start programs and after school programs, they don't allow the children to. If the children drink milk, they have to only drink cow's milk. They have to have special permission just to bring almond milk or some other type of alternative non-dairy into these facilities. And so all the children that I work with, they have mucus congestion in their in their nostrils, and this is interfering with their ability to breathe. It's interfering with their ability to have enough oxygen so they can think, and so that they can behave properly, so that they're not irritable. Just think about if you halfway suffocating all the time because you're not getting enough air, you know.
So a question I have for you, and is I'm happy that you brought up the fact that you go into the schools and work with the children, especially during this time, this traumatic time of political unrest. And what I feel is the continual mistreatment of the Black community. We talked a little bit about that before we started, how even me as an African-American, as a woman from African descent who lives here in America, who when I get stopped by the police, there's trauma, there's emotional trauma for everything that's going on. And I saw something on your website, racial trauma relief and inner alchemy. And I was very interested in that. And I wanted to get your view. I want you to tell us and tell our listeners what exactly is that and how they can utilize this science of what did you say? Science of self-discovery and
self-development.
Self-development. How do they utilize this in order, and what are you doing to utilize this to treat racial trauma and to get relief? And what exactly is inner alchemy?
Okay, so Kemetic Yoga has always, from its rediscovery by myself and my teacher, Dr. Yirser Ra Hotep, in the 1970s, has always been focused on healing and helping the Black community to change, to grow, to develop, to overcome health issues, trauma issues, stress issues, all these type of things, right? That is the nature of Kemetic Yoga. That's why we practice it in a certain manner that we do. That's why we put so much emphasis on the breath, because we put a lot of, because healing is fundamental. And so, to our practice and to the conception of our practice. And so when George Floyd was killed, was murdered in Minneapolis, and the protests came about, I was moved to try to create a course that was going to address issues of racial trauma in a way that people can take the course who are teachers or who want to teach this science to others, and they can take the course, they can learn how to teach it, they can learn the background, what is trauma, what are the physiological and the psychological and the cultural and the sociological aspects of this, and how does it impact us, how does it impact our community, how does it impact the world. And so to learn these things, to learn about the biochemistry, to learn about the genetic impact of trauma from, throughout generations, and how it has a genetic impact on, you know, that can be passed on from one generation to the next, you know. And so I felt like a lot of people were suffering and didn't have a lot of coping skills that they needed. And so I said we should have a course in Kemetic Yoga with that focuses specifically on that area. Now, the idea of inner alchemy, I've always taught these courses I call the alchemy of Kemetic Yoga. Alchemy is the word alchemy. First of all, think about the word alchemy. A-L, chem, that chem part. It comes from chemistry. And where does chemistry and chem come from? It comes from Kemet. This is all part of Kemet. Our ancestors in ancient Africa who created architecture, engineering, medicine, writing, you know, and philosophy, they were chemists. They were scientists. They understood the idea of chemistry. Chemistry is an investigation of the properties of, you know, by which different elements operate and interact with each other, right? And so inner alchemy is the science or the investigation of how do I create my consciousness? You know, where does my consciousness come from? Because you hear people talking about I'm conscious, right? I'm woke. I'm all these different things.
Stay woke. we say in the hood, we say stay woke.
Yeah. And all that is good. But what is consciousness? You know, what is it? What does it mean to be conscious? And what shapes our consciousness? Consciousness is created, and it's a combination of many different factors and forces coming together to create how we think, how we believe, how we feel, how we interpret, you know, the world around us, right? And so many people are often believing that simply because they think this way or they believe this or believe that, that causes it to be truth. They think that their opinion is more important than a fact. They think that their opinion is fact, right? And so inner alchemy is a process of self-examination to determine what is my consciousness now? In what ways do my consciousness need to change? In what way is my consciousness serving me, or in what ways is it disadvantaging me because I have a distorted view that is not in alignment with natural law, you know? And we have to understand, well, what is natural law? Our ancestors, there's a book called Ancient Future, the 7 Hermetic Laws of Ancient Egypt, which was written by a friend of mine named Wayne B. Chandler, right? And that book goes into the 7 principles that the Greeks and the Europeans call Hermetic, but are actually Kemetic. That actually comes from Africa, comes from Kemet.
Wow, okay.
And so learning these 7 principles is part of the process by which you are creating a deeper awareness. So you understand that the first principle is that everything is mind. All is mind. We put this false veneer on mind, on the universal mind. We call it God, and we say it's a person or it's a being, and he's angry or he's jealous and he. You know, he has a gender. You know, we put all of these different anthropomorphized ideas and conceptions upon this so-called God, which is basically a limitation. But our ancestors understood that mind, that everything is mind, everything is conception of the mind. And that this mind that is the mind that brought everything in the universe into creation is so vast and so immense that it's beyond our ability to comprehend. But since we are unable to comprehend, we say he's in heaven. We say he's the Father, and he sent the Son, and he did all these different things, right? Which are like human things that actually put a limitation on this supreme force, which we are calling God. You know, so we make him into it. We give human qualities. He's jealous. He's vengeful. He punished these people. He chose those people. You know, all of these ways of conceiving reality is actually putting a limitation on consciousness, right? And a limitation on our true potential, right? And so the second principle is like, as above, so below. The same organization, the same principles, the same, you know, order that we see on the highest levels. You know, when we look at the universe, when we look at the solar system, we see that there's an order. The sun is in the middle. The earth is rotating on its axis and is revolving, orbiting around the sun in a certain amount of time. And the other planets are doing likewise. And the moon and the moons of those other planets are doing likewise. So we can see this order there, right? And so we also see that same order that's manifested on the greatest level. We see that same order manifested on the smallest level, because when you look at an atom, you see a nucleus in the middle, you see electrons, protons, and neutrons revolving around it in a certain order, and they're being held in place by certain forces. They keep them in a certain pattern and in a certain formation, right? And so we just go through all these 7 principles to understand, you know, how did our ancestors, before we was enslaved, before we was captured and brought over here, before there was any books like Bibles and Qurans and Bhagavad Gita's from India and all this kind of stuff, what were we thinking and doing prior to all of this stuff, right? Before being captured, before being invaded, how did we think? How did we behave? What was our understanding of the nature of the universe? Did we believe that there was a dude in a cloud making everything happen? Or did we have a different understanding, right? And so all of that is part of the inner alchemy, discovering what is your true nature. And then you're able to put your true nature into action, because you understand that you have a power. You are not the creator, but you are a reflection of the creator. And you can create your reality within a certain level and ability within the context of who you are. Your mind can conceive and your mind can create if you use your mind correctly, and if you meld your behavior with your thought. And that's what a lot of people don't do. A lot of times people talk about the mind, right? So you look at Oprah, and I'm not trying to say nothing bad about Oprah, right? But if you look at Oprah, and she had the what was that thing they had, the Secret, right? Yeah. Talking about the mind and all this kind of stuff, right? But they were just talking about philosophical, and then they was giving like little practices that people can do, but it was like very superficial because it was all about marketing, right? So you have to have a scientific basis. You have to have a science that actually works, because we said science is verifiable, it's duplicatable, and so on.
Reproducible.
Yeah, reproducible. So you have to be able to have that to demonstrate that, you know, the worthiness, the validity, and the reliability of what you're talking about. right? And so we know that through meditation, we can achieve a lot of stuff. But you got to also behave in a certain way. You can't just say, oh, I want to be this, I want to have this, I want to have that, and just think about it really, really hard, and then it's going to happen. Your behavior has to reflect that. So if you want to have something, you got to go build it. You got to go create it. But you got to first conceive of it in your mind, and you got to move yourself to have the discipline and the self-control that's going to allow you to do the steps, to do the actions, and behave in a way, and to have the decision-making ability that's going to allow you to be able to achieve what it was that your mind conceived. So conceiving something is not the end of the process. It's what you're going to do behaviorally to make that thing happen. But if you conceive of it and you meditate on it, and you breathe it, it's going to have a greater possibility of becoming real. Because oftentimes people say, I want this and I want that, but they don't really believe that they're worthy of it, because on their inner psychology, in their subconscious, they are still operating from the slave narrative that I am not worthy, that I am inferior, I am not meant to have anything, and I have to rely upon this person in the sky before I get anything, right? Because this person gets angry at me, you know, that he's gonna punish me. So if something doesn't go right, you say, oh, well, God is angry at me because I did this, I committed a sin. So you feel guilty and all, you know, it's all of these different types of emotions, all of these different types of thoughts that create toxic conditions within the body, because they generate different hormones, they generate different biochemicals in the body, you know, that causes the body to become sick, and that causes a disruption in the in the genetic operation of the body, and damages certain aspects of the genes, like the telomeres, you know, that causes, you know, that holds everything, you know, and I don't know all the exact details, but the telomeres hold everything together within your genes and your chromosomes and stuff, you know, and when they become damaged, they unravel, and you have this loose genetic material just floating around, and it's not able to duplicate and replicate the way it's supposed to go, the way it's supposed to. So you have, you know, disruption. And so all of this is effects of trauma. All of this is effect of ongoing trauma and stress. Generation after generation. And it's being transferred to the newborn child, because if the mother, when she's pregnant, and even before she becomes pregnant, if she's not practicing living a lifestyle where she's reducing stress, where she's eating the proper foods, where she's getting the proper nutrients that's going to actually feed herself and produce the type of biochemicals in the body that she needs to have to produce the type of cells that she needs to have to build her muscle or organs and the different biochemical factors in the body, then it's going to have an effect upon the offspring. And so that stuff is getting passed on generation after generation.
So you're implementing this strategy in the youth. Are you going into the schools, and where are you implementing and teaching these things? Because you're located out of Chicago, correct?
Well, right now I'm doing this online, but I have always done this in my teaching. Mostly what I've done in the last, 15 to 20 years is train people to become instructors. So my mission now is to train people to become instructors, to train and certify people to become instructors of Kemetic Yoga. So prior to COVID, I was traveling all over the country all the time. Traveling all over the different countries, different parts of Africa, to Brazil, Jamaica, England, France.
You went to Ethiopia, right? Ethiopia and several parts of
Ghana,
Africa.
Gambia, South Africa,
Ghana.
Tanzania.
So in actuality, this COVID thing it helped you become more online. I think when you're online, you can reach more people.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
Everything is an adaptation, and this is a thing that people need to understand, because people, like I go to a restaurant here, I go to an Indian restaurant, and my friend who owns the restaurant, he's always angry because he said his business has been cut down by 60% because of the effects of of the COVID-19 pandemic, whatever. And so I tell them that you have to think outside of the box, because now the situation has changed. So now you have to adapt to the situation. So I have adapted by, I had already created a more of an online presence. I already created our online virtual classroom. I call it YogaSkills virtual classroom. This was created prior to COVID, right? Because we just looked at the fact that there's opportunities to reach people on a more global level who may not be able to travel, and because you're going place to place to place with limited amount of space. And so there's advantages and there's disadvantages to doing things online, but the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So now, because of the limitation in travel, I'm creating more courses for the online that people can access. And at the same time, when the opportunity arises, I do in-person things. So I still do my trips to Jamaica, because things have maneuvered themselves in such a way that I can still go to Jamaica twice a year, once in July and once in January.
You do you travel and you take groups to Africa as well, correct?
I take groups on tours of Egypt. And in Egypt, in the summertime, we do a tour. It's a historical and cultural and spiritual tour of Egypt. In November, we do a tour plus teacher training. So a person who comes with us in November can become a certified instructor of Kemetic Yoga, as well as take a tour of Egypt and see all the great sites and the pyramids, and can actually see the examples of yoga on the walls and of the temples and the different places that we go. And so it's much more educational, and to actually go into the temples and to experience and feel the energy that exists in these temples, and to do some type of meditation and stuff on the land, and to do our practices on the land next to the Nile River, to go inside the pyramids, to go inside various temples, and just experience things that open up your mind, that allow you to have different
spiritual awakenings, basically.
Spiritual awakenings, yeah. People have a lot of spiritual awakenings when they travel there.
Do you are you guys going in this November 2020?
If there are enough people wanting to go,
okay,
I'm going to go.
What's enough? 2, 5, 10?
Maybe around 10.
So how can our listeners, if they're interested, how can they access your classes and your online classes and these special trips to Kemetic Egypt, I should say?
Yeah. Our excuse me. Our website contains all of our information. And the website is yogaskills.com, YogaSkills, yogaskills.com. And they can see all the trips listed there. They can see all of the upcoming trainings there. They can see our Yoga Skills virtual classroom listed there, so on and so forth. People can also email me at my name, Yirser, YIRSER, at yogaskills.com.
We'll also have that as well in the link. During this time, Mr. Hotep, of COVID-19, I know that's what's on everyone's mind. It's stressful. It's negatively impacted financials for everyone. Some people have been made homeless because of it. Some families have been torn apart. Many people that I've known have lost loved ones because of the pandemic. And how do we utilize these techniques, the act of spiritual awakening, meditation? How do we utilize this and implement it in order to help boost immunity? I talk about how to boost immunity. I actually wrote an ebook, The Top 10 Ways to Naturally Boost Your Immunity. And I talk a lot about exercise. And I even had something in there about meditation, the importance of meditation and breathing. So we're on the same path. So how does this play into the pandemic that we're in right now? What is its role, I should say?
The pandemic is not to say this is the intention, but the pandemic provides an opportunity for people to make adaptations, right? And to make changes, and to slow down, to think, and to re-strategize whatever it was that they're doing. Even though you may make less money, even though you may be at more risk and stress from an economic perspective, maybe some people are, maybe some people not, depending upon what was happening. But everybody has an opportunity to slow down and to then start to focus on breathing, right? So the breath is the key, because in terms of reducing stress and to get a hold of your situation, what I teach all the time is that, I'm a social worker, so I'm always thinking in terms of what is an intervention. I look at people that's being in a vicious cycle, right? Mm-hmm. How do you break that vicious cycle? Because they have thoughts and behaviors which are leading into other thoughts and behaviors which are negative or maladaptive. So what intervention do I need to have, do I need to employ in order to break this vicious cycle? The easiest thing to do is to get somebody to breathe, to get them to sit down, take a slow, deep inhalation, a slow, deep exhalation, to do a couple of postures, a couple of movements that are going to open up the lungs, open up the respiratory system, right? And so why does this work? Because scientifically, slow, controlled breathing activates the part of your central nervous system, part of your autonomic nervous system called the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic is, when it's activated, it lowers your blood pressure, okay? It lowers your rate of breathing. It allows your blood circulation to refocus back into your internal organs, into your core, into your central core of your body, to carry out essential functions like digestion and assimilation and the processing of nutrients and all those type of things, right? When you activate that parasympathetic nervous system, it returns your body to a state of homeostasis. So you return back to that balanced state, right? And everything is flowing, right? You're in your flow state. And so that's where you want to be. So once you're able to get into that state, it also has an effect upon your mind, because now you're able to think, now you're able to focus, and now you're able to have better decision making. But first of all, you're able to examine what's going on because you're able to slow down and see what's happening. And then from being able to do that, then you're able to make a plan. You're able to make an assessment and then make a plan for how you're going to deal with the situation that you are in, right? So before you can make a plan, you cannot make a plan if you are hyped up. You cannot make a plan if you are out of your mind with anger, stress, disappointment, lack of confidence. So you have to do something that's going to slow down. A lot of those feelings we have of being sad, being depressed, being apprehensive, being anxious, all of that is the result of different types of neurotransmitters, different types of hormones, which are present in the body as a consequence of thoughts that we have. So once we start to change the thought, we start to change the biochemistry of the body. We start to change, instead of having adrenaline and cortisol and all those things pumping through our bodies, we start to get endorphins and dopamine, which gives us an opposite effect than that fight or flight or that stress response, right? And so then we're able to think, we're able to focus, we're able to make decisions better. And so everything needs to flow from that. And then we have to make the decision that we're going to eat correctly. We're going to eat better. It doesn't take a lot of investment to make sure that you get B complex vitamins. B complex vitamins are not stored by your body, but B complex like B12, B6, B1, so on and so forth. Those B complex vitamins help your body, they help your body to convert carbohydrates into glucose. And glucose is what's needed for your muscles to operate, and it's needed for your brain to operate. Mm-hmm. Your brain uses 20% of all the energy that your body produces. Mm-hmm. And so we have to get B complex, because B complex is not stored by your body. When you smoke cigarettes, when you drink alcohol, when you drink coffee, when you eat sugar, when you eat processed foods, all of those chemicals in those so-called foods that are in those drugs, which are masquerading as food. That's what they are. They're drugs masquerading as foods. They all strip your body of B complex, and they interfere with your body's ability to absorb your nutrients. So your vitamin C is not being absorbed. You need vitamin C in order to absorb B complex. You need vitamin C in order to absorb iron. You need vitamin C in order to absorb calcium. And vitamin C is involved in every metabolic process that your body goes through. And so if you're under stress, your body is not processing those things. But when you put those things in your body, you put the B complex into your body, when you get your vitamin C, then your brain is going to become activated. Your thought processes are going to slow down. You're going to be able to think and concentrate better. Okay? And so then you combine those two things, better nutritional status with controlled deep breathing. And the deep breathing is going to stimulate your body's stress reduction. So you're going to reduce your stress. You're going to lower your blood pressure. You're going to reduce your chance of diabetes, reduce your chance of cancer, reduce your chance of heart disease and stroke. And you're going to strengthen your immune system because, you're lowering everything down, right? And so then, so what's the best way to get these nutrients into your body? I always say, just get you a smoothie, and make you a smoothie with some spirulina, some bee pollen, some moringa, some flaxseed oil, some organic frozen strawberries and blueberries. And, you can use sunflower seeds, you can use pumpkin seeds, you can use flax seeds or hemp seeds, supplement and get your protein and get your, you can use almonds, you can use Brazil nuts, you know, all of these things, you know,
Yeah.
you can figure out how to put these into your blender in different combinations, and you're going to get all of your amino acids, and you're going to get all of your B complex vitamins. You're going to get your vitamin C,